Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button and I'm a granite sculptor. And welcome to video number 110 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Now, I wanted to show you all this. I watered the floor real well at the end of the day yesterday, and I can go to a certain point where it puddles and it will soak in by the next morning. It's so nice to come in and have a floor. There's no dust, and when it's wet, it gives you just a little bit of give. A lot more comfortable working on a dirt floor, clay floor than concrete, and a lot safer too, in my opinion. I'm trying to do a lot of thinking. Let me set this camera up, and we'll try to get this underway. There's going to be, I'm trying to work through all of this in my head as to how I'm going to economize words and time and video time and get good video, have things that actually show up on the video about this whole pointing process. When you do a video about a pointing machine, you basically have to create your 3 foundation points on the job and on the model, and then you just carve. You take a point and you move it to your point, you take a point, you move it to your point, and you just cut. And it's really straight and it's really fast forward. And there's a lot of videos on this, on pointing with the pointing machine, whether they're just on the regular internet or you can buy a video or whatever. I've seen quite a few, and there's a lot of videos where people are just using a pointing machine and they show you. They don't really, whether it's entertainment or whether it's archival or whatever, they don't actually teach you how to use a pointing machine. This is a far more involved process, swinging compasses, and there's been some chatter on the internet about people saying they were going to put up videos about doing compasses, and they've even had some example type videos where they've got people that are using compasses, but they don't explain the process. In my professional opinion, the reason that nobody has done a video or two about compasses is that it's really hard to do a video or two and actually be comprehensive. There's a lot that goes on, and I hope that by reviewing the 4 or 5 videos I've got in the description that are about theory and how to the theory of how this works, the process of constructing your triangle, the process of taking a measurement, applying it to the triangle, and calculating an enlargement or a reduction, by that method. And now we're getting ready to actually apply those dimensions to the job and transfer them from a model to the job. It's really hard to consolidate that in a few little ways because it takes only a minor problem and it goes right off. It's junk. It doesn't work at all. So study these other videos that are in the description. What I'm going to do, I thought about it, and I'm going to do what I said. We've got to set the joint. We're going to come 5 inches up from the joint, okay? And I've marked that on the stone. We're going to come 5 inches up. I've already marked 5 inches here. And so we'll put a new stripe here. We'll wiggle this line just to keep off of it so we know. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to produce our foundation points. We're going to establish them on here along this line. That's the line we're using. We can do this anywhere as we want on the stone. I could put her cockeyed on the stone. I could put her upside down on the stone. I could do whatever I want with her, okay? Because I'm in control. But what we have to remember is that this is our reference. This is the rule, okay? There's nothing, everything is in this stone. Everything is. We have to go by this model. Now, we talked about, pull this back. I talked about how I wanted to use her, I wanted to stretch her, or to make her 5'7" instead of 5'6", because of the issues with having to fix this joint with the chips we had, and wanting to keep this balanced with the Scotia on the drop wash Scotia to make this a little bit shorter, not have it equal height, because that's 6, and I decided I didn't want this 6, I wanted it to be 5. I don't really want it to be 4 because I'm concerned about handling it. It's not just a statue with a plinth around it that's relatively, you know, that's half or less than what this would weigh. So, to keep this die portion at the 6-foot height that we want, because we're down an inch here, we have to raise an inch up there, okay? So we've still got this dimension to here that's 6 foot. You can even see I'm way up here on the top, but up on this very top is a 6 foot that goes across. We got plenty of room here. We got a little bit where the wingtips will probably come up above, because this is up to 2 or 3 inches over that. Over here doesn't matter, because we're going to cut this away, because that's above her die, the die where her arm is. We're going to point from her, and we want this to be accurate from approximately this 6 foot dimension from the joint. And that means we're going to place, because we're moving this down an inch, we're going to effectively be putting our foundation points not at the top of the plinth, but down just a little bit. We're going to measure it and go out by our compasses on our triangle. We're going to work backwards a little bit. Should have a triangle in the center mark so I can do reverse dimensions to help proof things. We'll put our points here and here. They're an inch, that are equivalent to an inch below the top of this plinth, but they'll be on this line. We aren't going to put the marks on here until we have created them on here, because this is the standard. This is our model. This is what we will use. So we're going to do that, and then proceed with that into the stone. Okay. Once we have our foundation points established on the model, the two base points, and I'll move the cameras to try to show you better. I'm going to put 2 points, and the only thing that they really have to be is that they really need to be in a straight line that's perpendicular to our center line. Okay, and that's important, because once we establish those, we can transfer those dimensions going from our known edge, you know, or wherever we've got our edge. We've got our edge of our die transferred down through here, okay, because the plinth is going to hang over. So we've got this edge to work from. We can take from that line, same as from right here, go over and measure this. Then we're going to swing the calipers. We're going to get a new measurement. We're going to apply that measurement to here, put a mark, and hit a point, you know, with our little drill, sharp point, whatever, in our hand machine. And that's going to be a foundation point. And then we'll do a second one the same, well, similar way. probably what I'll do, because it'll be more accurate than going off the edge of this plaster, that's approximately correct, but we don't know that it is I'll take a point from this foundation point over to the next foundation point. Hit it with a caliper, get a measurement, put it on the triangle, enlarge it, and then I'll go and I'll mark it and I'll put a little hole, okay? Then we can take a point between those, mark it for our center line, okay? We could even put a third point there if we wanted to. We'll swing it, swing it on here, then enlarge it on the triangle, then apply it. Then we got a point here with our center line. We could put our square on, just our carpenter square right on this line that we put across from the top of the joint where they're in plane. And we can put a center line right up through there, okay? That center line will correspond with the center line on the model. And then because we know our dimensions, we can go from, actually we can use this old line right here that we marked out, because that represents the top of the plate on this job, on the plaster. We'll measure up here, and we've got to put a fixture across the top of this. And I'll move the camera around and show you all this. We're going to put a fixture on here that will be at 8 inches deep. It'll be behind her head, slightly above it, and it'll also be stone that we're going to waste off later. So we'll immediately have an 8-inch deep hole or point right up in here in the top on the center line. So we can go, once we've got those two foundation points in the center line mark, we can go up an exact distance and sink to cut a point down here. This is why all of that work that I've shown you with cutting, boring, we're going to put a pattern and we're going to check it and we're going to go to a depth and we're going to put this line right there and everything's going to fit. Okay, this is an 1/8 inch, up or down or in or out or whatever. Okay, that foundation point is going to be right on the money. Okay, and so we're going to measure, that's going to be the most arbitrary of the 3 original foundation points that we produce, because we have to put that where we want it to be, but we also have to put it where it is on the stone. And we should be able to proof it a little bit. I'll try to show you. But that's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to get some screws, I'm going to get some plaster, I got a little bit of water in my cooler, and run the button and get some water out. We're going to start putting points, point, 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 point. Then we're going to do a center line, point, we're going to square it up, and that'll be how vertical she is. And then we're going to go up and I'll cut a point. I'll go down on the end, go down my 8 inches to where that point is. I'll put a point and I'll have a foundation point right there. Okay? And once that's done, we can start swinging compasses and start shooting points. And we will start establishing points that we'll use again and again, like along high points on her wings, and I'll probably put points in there that are a little bit taller. And so until we get a few of these points in place where we measure where we're going, and I'll just put the screws in there with the hole in the center. I'll just put them in there and then I'll shoot to them just like I'm shooting to, on her leg, where I'm not going to put a point or a nail. I'm just going to have a little X or a little circle with a dot or whatever. Okay? Because she's going to still be, the top of her head is going to be up where it is, but we've lowered this. We've added an inch of information here, an inch of space that we're going to cut away. So that's where we're going to get into stretching her legs. Okay? So what I'll have to do is that anything that drops, once we get to this apex, if I'm going to stretch her down like this, I can't cut this, because if I cut this incline that way, in order to have this an inch longer, I'll end up having this way deep, and I'll have to go in deeper than I want to do it. I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is once I get to the top of her knee and the top of this drapery up in this area, I won't cut anything low in here where this drops. This one I still can do because this is very high. It's not a big problem. It doesn't go way in. But then I'll be able to cut points here where it's coming up. I can shoot this point down in this area, and then we can literally just go over about an inch, make a pad that's a little bit longer, and we can mark that original point that we shot, and then we'll mark this other point. And that'll make sense as we're going. I think once I start swinging them, you'll start understanding some of that. But we're going to do some regular points first, and I'm going to try to get what I can for good images on video. But like I said, the reason I think that this has never been captured on video that I know of is that this isn't something you can just catch on video real quick and watch it for 10 minutes. Go, oh yeah, hey, check it out, that's pretty cool. And with a point machine, you can almost do it. I mean, if you got an expert instructor, it's not as critical. It's a lot easier to set up. You can explain it a lot better. This is a little more arbitrary. Okay, this is kind of jumping ahead with this stuff popping up, but I forgot to mention this. I saw it when doing the video. Normally, if this was, if I was just working with a piece of stone that was arbitrary, like I've talked about having extra stone for insurance, where I've got stone on the left, on the right on this one, I just shift her to the right. Or having stone on the back, which is normally that's how we were trained. Gary, we had the joint saw and we just left extra stone on the back. If I had enough height with this change in the plinth, if I wanted to make her 5'7", I could just change my triangle, construct a new triangle that would just be slightly different and larger. The problem is that this job is corrected so that I've got an 8-inch dimension on the back of this stone the way I've spec'd it. And this profile from here to here will scale up to be 8 inches because this is 5 and whatever inches, that's 2/3 of 8. And so in order to keep her in the correct, she's foreshortened just a tiny bit, not much, but just a little bit. But to keep her in scale to where the model is, I have to keep that correct. So that's why I'm cheating this, and I'm going to add extra dimension in here vertically. But by pointing from here, I can choose any point and just point her there and then add the extra, and I'll add the extra right in here, okay? But this is a corrected model, so I can't just make her an inch taller and then have her stay in the same proportions. I hope that makes sense. All right, back to the video. I'm gonna go out and make some screws, show you what to do. Okay, I'm gonna show you real quick how I do my screws. Just got some plain sheetrock screws and a propane torch. Heat it up nice and red, get it completely hot on the end, and then just let it cool off. I'm going to do all those like that. Now that all these screws have been heated and annealed, and that's to take the hardness, that's to resolve the temper in them because they've been heat treated so they won't twist off when you drive them into the sheetrock. Now I'm going to take a small drill bit and I'm going to drill the very center out. Just enough to start it. And then I took the drill bit out and I put it, instead of a bigger drill bit, I've got a countersink that I hardly ever use for anything that small. So it's a great one to swap in, and we'll take away the rest of the flutes for there we go. Just enough to clean it up. You see, now we've got eliminated all of the dry flutes on that screw. So we've got a real nice center down in there. And when we put our point in, our compass, it'll locate really well. Okay, now I've got, I don't know, 15 of them, whatever. I made a bunch, so I'm gonna stop and do it again. And the flutes are drilled out, the dry flutes, and the center is sunken, so I got a good anchor, good place for it to go. And I can screw those in with a pair of pliers after I drill a hole, and then run a regular screw down in to cut the threads. And that'll scrud right down in pretty much with your fingers, and once you get it about where you want it, we'll plaster it in place. So let's start doing this layout. Okay. I'm going to take my calipers and put it on a ruler. I'm going to measure I'm going to set them at 1 inch. Let's see if this will show. Then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to work backwards on my I've got my triangle set up center. And boy, I need little ones. This is when sometimes you'll get small and you're better to use a pair of dividers. Andy gave me these. These are some of his favorites. But they're just dividers, you know, use them like calipers. We're going to do a little small one. So I'm going to capture that dimension. And then I'm going to take that dimension, I'm going to double check it upon this other big triangle to see, make sure that's right on the money, okay? So this is technically my job caliper, and this is my model caliper. We're going to work on establishing this line here, and I need my pencil. We'll come down from what we think is the bottom of her drapery. And I'm just going to get a square and measure it right across. What looks right, and I'll check it over here. That looks pretty good. Okay, so there's our line. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a caliper, I'm going to double check this. I want to swing it and see how close to 5 inches it is. That's pretty close. And it's because this is not perfect, that's close enough. I'm confident I'm in a good spot. So now we just got to measure over a short distance for our first point. Now these points are going to work better for foundation points if they're close together. Remember, it's better if they're divergent. Even if they're in that same plane, the further apart they can be, the better. So let's just arbitrarily say this is the edge of the model. We're just going to go in that far. Okay? Let's drill a hole. We want this hole to be pretty tight because we don't want these to do any more than just cut threads as it's turning in. We don't want to spread it because it'll blow the model apart. Yeah, that feels good. You get a screwdriver. Now, if you need to countersink it, don't ream the screw in there. Back it out. Countersink it a little bit, okay? That'll be good. That's going to be right close, right at flush. Okay, and I want to be over here. And remember, our points on this stone are going to be an inch tall. We got to take face off anyways. So usually if you're doing this and this was a finished face, we'd only put a little divot, or what we also would do would take the little plastic pads. It's just some ultra high molecular weight UMHW white plastic that you use for setting monuments. You get little squares that are like an inch square, real thin. And you can tape those onto the stone or even glue them onto the stone and then cut them off afterwards instead of cutting a hole in the stone. And you may have to make an accommodation on the model for the elevation if your point is very high. But to have a fixture that goes on, or to make a corral that goes around like what we're going to do for the top, and then have the point in that. I've got pictures over there where I had it on the stone and I was actually pointing out of a piece of metal that had a little divot in it. But here we can do this. So we're just gonna, I don't know, it doesn't, looking up her center line approximately is right about here. We'll just put it right there, just for argument's sake. And I wonder, I don't think there's enough room to be that far over. Well, yeah, we are. There's enough room to be that far over. So that center line would be exactly in the center if we do right there. So we'll just make that the center line and we'll strike that right there. And then I'll drill a hole. Great. And so that there's no question, I'm going to go ahead and mark that as well. So we've got the center line, we've got our two foundation points. A little bit of plaster. Yeah, it's hydrocal, it's not plaster, but whatever. A little bit of special indoor plumbing. And stick. I'm going to take one of these screws, just a tiny bit of water. Now it's important to remember the depth of your hole should be on the surface plane where you want it to go, okay? Because if you go deep, it's going to change the relationship of how you point and how it turns out. I hope that makes sense. Okay? That one's in. Now we'll do it again over here. Having a little squirt bottle like this with doing fiddly bits of plaster and stuff, so nice because you get so much more control versus having, you know, you're going to put a drop of water here and you end up putting half a cup or vice versa. You can really do exactly what you want. And so you can screw this in most of the way completely just with your fingers. And snug it right up. For everybody that wants to complain and say, well, that's not how the old men do it. When I told the old men that I cut with, that's what I do, they go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I should have thought of that. Okay, now we're going to let those dry. And get started on doing our center line up the middle and putting our fixture in the center at the top. There's one foundation point. It's my center point. Here's my other foundation point. Okay, it's time to wrap this video up. We got the foundation points in, and we're going to start on the next video. We're going to put this together and put our point here at the top. We're going to make a fixture to go on here, and then we can have a point there, and then we'll layer, that'll be on the center line because that's the easy way to do it. We'll just do that. We'll put that point on there, and then we're going to mark our end, and we're going to drop a cut and make our point just like we've been doing on the side. We're going to do the same thing again on the top, and then it's time to start swinging compasses. And we'll shoot points. We'll put some other screws or nails in a few points that we're going to use over and over again, probably like to her knee or something, or probably down here on the side especially, so we can have things at different heights. So that's it. Swinging compasses. My name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio, showing you the things that nobody else is showing you how to do, even if they know how to do it. Thanks for coming in.